Okay, hello everyone. So in this session, we'll be discussing about Z index in CSS cascading style sheet. So when you design a website, we can use CSS for styling, as you know that. Also, we can use CSS positioning for positioning the element in the web page, right? So when you position the element in a web page using a position property, for example, we have a position property to layout the element in a web page, right? So when you use position property like relative, absolute, or fixed, or sticky, so such kind of position layout, when you are using that, so there is a chance of the elements may overlap each other. For example, it look like this. For example, here you can see one example. Here I have three images and one div box containing a text, right? So here the three images, if you look at the three images, it's overlapped, right? Because of positioning. Okay, using position offset, we are moving the element to right side, left side, or bottom, or we can move it any side, right? Using those top, left, and right and bottom properties. So when you use these properties, the one element may overlap another element. So when there is a overlapping, how we can manage the overlap so that which one you can show to the user in the front side, as well as which one you can show it in the back side, you can control using, there is a concept called Z index. So basically, when elements are positioned, they can overlap each other, right? So basically what is Z index is, Z index property specifies that the stack order of an element. Okay, so you have to think in terms of 3D view, X, Y, Z axis. Okay, three axes you have to imagine. So the if you see any web page, you have to imagine like a 3D view, right? In order to understand the Z index. Okay, so if you want to understand Z index, you have to imagine like a 3D view. So there will be a X axis, Y axis, and Z axis. Okay, so Z axis is actually the object comes in the Z axis only most viewable by the user, right? So it is coming front, right? So that is a stack order. Okay, so here Z index is represented by both positive and negative number. The highest value element, highest value which you are giving to the particular element, right? So that element will be visible in the front. That element will come to the front. For example, here we have three images. So this particular door, country, wild flowers, this particular text is having highest Z index. So that's why it is overlapping all other elements. Okay, and you can switch, you can convert, you can change any element to come in the front. Okay, by using Z index. For that, remember, you have to give highest Z index value. For example, here you can see that Z index 1, the blue color box is in the back, it is actually behind other elements because it's having less Z index. And if you are giving Z index 2, it's come to the front of the blue color. And when you give 3, look at that, this particular box is actually coming to the front. Okay, so Z index controls the order of the element that is displayed in the web page in Z axis. Okay, so that the user can see the element, which element you want, so that you can make which element you want to show in the front and which element you want to show in the background. Okay, so Z index modifies a stacking order of elements. That's the same thing only. The default value of Z index is 0. Okay, so if you are not giving any value for the Z index, the default value will be 0. So if you give 1, Z index 1, that element will come to the front because all other elements will be, the default value will be 0. Okay, so elements with higher Z index values will appear stacked on top of elements, lower Z index value rendered on the same area of the page. Okay, so you have to imagine like this. Okay, Z index, Z axis, these are the stacked elements. Okay, so the the element which has higher z value will be coming to the front. So that you have to understand. Okay. So now here one example. For example, if you here I have created 3 div box, box 1, box 2, box 3, and I am writing different CSS for box 1 and box 2 and box 3, right? So here we can apply position. Using position attribute, we can move the element to any place, right? Using left, top, right parameter properties, right? You can use these properties and you can move it. When you move it, it will overlap. Okay. So when it is overlapping, the stack order, the order of overlapping, you can control using z index like this. For example, here z index is equal to 1, z index is 10, index is 3. So I have given purposely I have mentioned that, right? So when I do that, here highest value is actually this one, z index is having 10. So the green color box will come in front. Similarly, the next highest is 3, z index is actually next highest is blue. So back side of green color, the blue color box will be coming, and the red color box will stay in the background since the z index is low index, okay, low value. So the same example we can see the output here. The same program I have written here, 3 div element, box 1, box 2, box 3, and the output look like this, right? Now I am going to use a position attribute. So using position attribute, I am trying to change. For example, so here I am going to use position attribute absolute, top 5 pixel, left 10 pixel. So now when I change position to for the red color, see the red color box is moved left side 10 pixel and right top 5 pixel, and it comes out of the normal flow. When it comes out of the normal flow, the blue color box occupy the original position of the red color box. So the same property we can apply to all the box. So when I apply to all the box, see nothing is visible except the last box which you have added, because we are positioning the boxes with the same value, 5 pixel left top and 10 pixel left side. So you will get same, every element is actually comes out of the normal flow and it will be positioned in the same location, so it overlap each other. It's completely overlapped because the same top value and left value. So now I'll try to change it. So this is actually I'm going to put 50 pixel, and here I'm going to put 100 pixel or 70 pixel I'll put. Now look at that, one box come, okay, it's come out of the other box, okay, since we are giving a different value, and here I'm going to give 70 pixel and this is 90 pixel. So now see that now we can clearly see the overlapping, box 1, box 2, box 3. Here box 3 is overlapping the box 2 and box 1, and if you go inside, box 2 is overlapping the box 1. So this is called stacked order. Okay. So how you have to imagine is, you have to imagine in a 3D view. Okay. So in 3D view, according to 3D view, the box 3 is having highest. Box 3 is actually, since we have added last, okay, listen carefully, you have the, since we have added the box 3 at last, third, okay, so by default actually the z index is same only. For z index, box 1 is 0, box 2 is 0, box 3 is 0. Based on the order, by default you will get based on the order, box 3 overlap box 2, box 1. Okay. So now if I change the order, okay, for example, I want to see the red color box front. So you can use z index, I can give 5 for red color box. When I give z index for the red color box 5, now see the effect. We can bring the hidden area of a box 1 to the front view. Okay, in the z axis we can bring it to the front. So that is the idea about set index. Set index controls the stacked order. We can bring the element to the front view. The same way, if you want to bring the blue color, you have to give set index more than 5. So 7. When I use 7, now see that box 1 goes to the normal place, and box 2 is coming to the front now, since box 2 set index is 7, right? So box 2 is coming front. The same way, if you want to bring the green color first, okay, so what you have to do, you have to give greater value 10. I'm giving 10 for green color box. So when I give it green color, sorry, not green color, magenta color box, when I give 10, now see that box 3 is actually having highest value, so it's coming front. Now if you want to change the box, blue box, if you want to bring it, you have to give set index 17. Okay, when I'm giving set index 17, now see that that blue color box is coming front, and magenta class is going backside of blue color, then red color box is always backside. Okay, and if you give 50 for this red color box comes to the front. Okay, so this is about how we can control the z axis view of HTML elements, and which element you want to show in the front, that you can decide using z index. Okay, fine. So z index controls the order of the element that is visible to the user. Okay, right. So that's all about CSS position concept. Then one more positioning concept called CSS Float. The next topic we are going to discuss about is CSS Float. According to CSS position, we can change the normal flow of a HTML element, and we can use relative layout, absolute layout, and those parameter also, top, left, bottom, right, offset value we can use. There is one more way we can alter the normal flow of a HTML element, that is called CSS Float. So using CSS Float, we can position the element, okay, in the left side or right side of the particular window, okay, particular web page, right? So the basic idea about CSS Float is it can change the normal flow. We can alter the normal flow of a web page elements. Okay, so when it comes to CSS Float, there are two properties available. One is float, then one is clear. The float property specifies how an element should float, whether you want to float left side or you want to float right side. In opposite, clear property specify what elements can float beside the cleared element on which side. Okay, it means you are floating one element left side. Okay, when you float one element left side, the remaining elements automatically floated to left side, remaining elements. Okay, so if you want to stop that, we have to use clear property. Okay, we have to use clear property. Okay, right. So now let's see one example how to do the float property, how to use float property. The float property can take these values, left side we can float, or right side we can float, or you can completely disable the floating behavior using none value. Okay, so these are the possible value for float. Okay, so let's see one example. So for example, here I have a class box 1, box 2, box 3. I'm having some common dimensions, some colors. Okay, right. So here how we can use float property like this, float left. So when you use float left, the box 1 will come to the left side, and for box 2, if you give float left, the box 2 will come to the left. Also we can use right. When you use right side, box 3 will go to the right side. Okay, the same example we can apply this technique. Let's see that. Now I will remove this position attribute, set index, everything I will remove that. See, if you are using float property, don't use position property. Okay, both are different. Okay, so if you are using float property, don't use position property. When you are using position property, don't use float property. Both are doing a same job in a different way. Okay, so now see that we have 3 boxes, and we are giving a three different color: red color, blue color, magenta color, and the same equal width and height. Okay, so now currently actually the box is coming this much, so I'll reduce the width to understand the float. Right, so this is the width. So now see that this is the default layout of the box div element. Okay, so now if I want to bring box 1 and box 2 left side, okay, here side by side, we can use float property, apply float property for the box red color box 1. So when I use float property red color box 1, what happened is red color box come out of the normal flow, and the blue color box will go behind the box red color box. If you want to see that, you have to right click, select inspect. Okay, you have to select inspect, and I'll show you that. So you go to inspect element, and in inspect element first you have to select the particular element. So inside, go to inside, select box 1, select box 1, and here you can see, here you can see the styling. Okay, so what are the styling is applied in a tick mark. Okay, so if you want to see that, you have to just click background color red color. When you click background color red color for the box 1, okay, now see that the box 2 color blue color is coming here. Why? So when you apply float left for the red color box, the box 2 goes backside of this particular box 2 occupy the place of the box 1. Why? Because it's box 2 also floating. Box 2 is floating, right? You can see here. Okay, and if I reduce this height, look at that. If I reduce the height, if I click this height, the height is removed. See, one more thing here you should notice that this is actually, we can, to understand the CSS property, here there is a manipulator is there. We can apply, we can disable, and we can enable. So when I click here, height is added. When I click here, height is removed. Okay, similarly, if I click float, float is removed. When I apply height, it comes like this. Okay, so when I apply float, it comes like this, and you see when I remove the background color, you can see the box 2 background color blue color. Okay, so why? Because when you float a particular element, the remaining element will be automatically floated to the left side, right? What that you have to understand, right? So I'll just close this. So now the same float you can apply to the second box. So if you want to bring the second box side by side, after first I want to float this box 1 left side, then after this box 1 I want to keep the box 2. So you have to use like this, left. Now look at that, box 1 and box 2. Box 1, box 2 is floated to left side properly. So after box 1 it will occupy the position. But what about box 3? Box 3 background color is not visible. Why it is not visible? Here I'll show you why it is not visible. I'll keep it in the down. So now select this particular element. So when I select the particular element, okay, box 3, I'm selecting box 3, okay, or I'll select box 1. I'll select box 1. Now in box 1, if I remove the background color, see background, if I remove the background color, now look at the background color of box 1. The magenta color of box 3 color is coming to the box 1. Why? Because that place is occupied by this box 3. That place is occupied by box 3. Okay. So this you have to understand. Okay. So if you apply float for one element, the remaining elements will occupy the floated element space. Floated element space will be occupied by the remaining element. Okay. If you want to properly float, you have to use the float property to all the elements. Okay. For example, you have to apply float property to the magenta color like this. Okay. So now see that all the box will come in the horizontally, box 1, box 2, box 3. Okay. Then you can apply margin. When you apply margin, you'll get a space. Okay. we can apply margin for each box. So you'll get small gap you can manage using margin. Okay, the same thing you can do right alignment also. Okay, you can right side also you can float. So if you want right side float, for example, the magenta box I want to float right side. So what I have to do, I have to say that float right. So now the magenta box goes to the right side of the screen. Box 1, box 2 will be in the left side, and box 3 comes to the right side of the web page. Okay, so these are the two values, float left and float right. Remember, when you apply float for a particular div element, the next element occupy the place of the floated element, right? So you cannot see that, it will overlap. So in order to see that, again you have to apply float for property to the next element also, right, whether it is right side or left side. Okay, now here we can float all the element to right. For example, the second blue color box, it will come to this side. See, it's floated to the left side, right side. And similarly here also we can float to right side. Okay, that the red color box is coming to the right side, then blue color box, then magenta color box. Okay, and if you want to bring it to center, you can do that. Okay, you have to put a center tag. Okay, so it will come in the center, right? Center tag you can use, or you can use a one container box, div container box, and you can provide a text align is equal to center, right? So this is about float element, right? Using float right or left, we can do that. The next is, we have another property called clear property. So clear property is the opposite of float property. The clear property is a supporting property of a float. Why it is supporting is, floating behavior will be cleared by using clear property. We can stop floating. We can use, by using clear property, we can stop the floating. Floating behavior we can stop, right? Now let's see how to do that. For example, here I am I'll remove this to left side, and here also I'll put left side. Otherwise I'll remove this. Okay, see, I have removed the float property from two boxes. Now look at that, the output look like this: box 1, box 2, but box 2 is not visible. Box 2 is not visible. Why? We know that box 2 goes in the back side of box 1. Okay, so why? Since I am using float property left side, this box, the second box, is actually floated to the space of the box 1. So if you want, this is the default behavior. This default behavior, if you want to stop, you have to mention clear. So you have to, because you have to clear the floating. You have to clear the floating. Here I am floating left. So this behavior I want to clear here. So when I do clear left, now look at that, box 2, I am floating this box. Anyway, when I am floating this box, it is not affecting this box 2. It is not affecting this box 2, right? Why? Because of clear. Similarly, if I am using float left for this here, for this box also, now box 2, box 1 goes here, and box 3 is actually goes back side of the box 1, right? So if you want to clear that, you have to say that clear left. So when you use clear left, these two floating behavior will not affect the box 3. So that is a concept you have to understand, right? So the previous two element we are floating, that floating behavior impacting the next element. So that impact you can stop by using the clear property. So clear, you have to correctly use the side value. Well, if it is left side, you have to do left side. Otherwise, if it is right side, you have to do right side. For example, if I am floating right side, this one, now it look like this. See, I am floating the red color box right side. Now look at the box 2 place. Okay, now look at the box 2 place. When I am floating box 1 right side, See now here you can clearly understand the blue color box is occupying the place of the box 1, right? So this you can avoid by setting clear. If you want to stop float, so clear left, sorry, clear right, right? Now see that when I am using clear right, box 2 will automatically comes to the its original position. Okay. So since in the earlier case when you are floating to the right side, the red color box, the box 2 is floated to left side here. That behavior we can stop using clear right. Right. So this way we can stop the floating behavior at any point by using clear property, right? So and if I am not using here, okay, we can use it for here also. Okay, you can stop it here. So for this magenta box will not float, okay, and here magenta box will not float, but the blue color box is floated here. But if I say right, see now the blue color box is going to the right side, the magenta box is still here only. Why it is still here? Because of clear right. If I remove this clear right, the magenta box goes to the occupy this place. It occupies this place. So if you want, you can leave it like, if you want the design like this, you can leave it. But sometimes you want to keep this magenta box here in the original position. So in that case, you have to apply this clear. When you apply clear, the next element will follow the normal flow. It won't float. Okay, so that is the concept, float and clear property. So clear you can use left, right, or you can, there is one more value, it's called both. When you use both, you can clear either left side or right side. Both we can clear by using both value. Then comes to the next topic is overflow property. So there is a property called overflow. By using overflow property, we can control the overflow of a text inside a text or any content. Okay, anything you can control the overflow of a content inside a container or inside a div element or a paragraph. Okay, so for example, here I have a div element. I have a text. Okay, so the width of the div element is 200. It is mentioned using a black color box here, right? And height is 50 pixel. Height is 50 pixel only. Okay, and border is I have mentioned, right? So now here when you keep some text, sometimes the text, depending on the size of the text will overflow out of the box. This you can control using overflow property. By default, overflow property value is visible. Visible means whatever overflowing, you can see that. This you can hide also. Okay, so there are so many values. For example, you can put as a overflow equal to hidden. When you use overflow equal to hidden, see whatever overflow text, that you cannot see it. Okay, similarly you can attach scrolling. You can attach a scroll bar by using overflow :scroll. When you use scroll bar, you will get a horizontal scroll bar, vertical scroll bar. Okay, so I'll show you one example how we can understand this particular overflow concept. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one more div element. So this actually I'll float everything to right side. Okay, so now it is actually, this is a page, everything goes to the right side. Now I'm creating one more div element. Inside this div element, I'm going to keep one paragraph of text. The paragraph of text I'll take from Wikipedia. Now this paragraph I'm going to copy inside a div element. So I have a div element. I'm going to name it this as a content. Okay, content is a class name for this. Okay, right. So now let's see the output in the right side. So right side, Okay, this is a problem here. So next I'll remove this float. The float property I have removed. Okay, so now the paragraph comes like this. Okay, otherwise I'll just to make it very simple, I'll comment this previous coding. Okay. Okay, so now I have a paragraph. I have a paragraph like this. Okay, now I can write CSS styling. So I'm going to write a CSS styling for this class name content. So this is the div element, right? So first I'll give a background color. Background color I'm going to give a yellow color. Now I'm giving a background color yellow color, right? So currently there is no overflow. Look at that paragraph. There is no overflow. Why? Because the height of the div element and the width of the div element is by default based on its content. Based on its content, the height and width of the div element is adjusted. Okay. So next I'll give some padding also. I'll give padding 20 pixel. So when I give padding 20 pixel, it look like this. So properly visible, and we can give a text alignment or text align justify. Right. So recommended thing is whenever you are using a paragraph, use this padding as well as text align justify. So your content looks good in the web page. So now there is no problem. Okay. Now problem comes when you give a width and height. When you apply width, for example 200 pixel, and height 100 pixel. If I am giving a width and height like this, okay, now look at that. I am giving a width is 200 pixel and height is 100 pixel. So in that particular dimension, this text cannot, okay, this text cannot be fitted. Okay, so what will happen? The text will overflow. It will come out of the div element. Okay. So this overflow behavior is natural only because size of the text is more, right? So this we can control whether it is visible or whether you want to hide it or whether you need a scroll bar kind of thing. Okay. So little bit width I will give. I'll give a width as 400. Okay. Not here. Okay. The width I'm going to give 400. So when you give 400, this is coming, right? This much is coming, right? So now if I'm giving a width 400 also, see, look at that. This portion of the text is actually overflowing out of the div element, right? So this overflow by default it is visible. By default it is visible to the user, right? So the default value of this overflow is visible. So this is actually when we can also use that. We can write the property overflow equal to visible. So when you do that, this is the default behavior. It is visible only, right? But we can change this by using a hidden property. Okay, if you want to hide it, if you want to hide the overflow content, you can put this hidden. So when you use hidden, all overflow content, overflow text will be cut off. You cannot see those content in the web page. See, only you can read this much only. The remaining content is there, but it is not visible to the user. It is hidden. You cannot read that. Okay. So this is one value. If you want to hide the overflow, you can use this hidden value. But sometimes you want to give readability. For user, you want to give readability, right? So you don't want to hide, but you don't want overflow also. Okay, there are two cases. Listen, sometimes you don't want to hide it as well as you don't want to overflow it. So in that case, there is an option is called scroll. When you use scroll, it will add scroll bar. It will add scroll bar in horizontally as well as vertically. For example, when I save it, now look at that. There is a scroll bar is actually added here. Here you can see scroll bar is available, right? By using scroll bar, we can read the entire content. but at the same time the overflow is also removed, right? Because it's not overflowing the content outside the div element. Okay, we are getting a scroll bar here. Using scroll bar we can read it. The same way horizontal scroll bar is actually now it is not visible. Why? Because there is no only actually this much only actually is seeing, right? There is no other content right side. The vertical scroll bar is added to make the user to read the content fully, as well as horizontal scroll bar will be added if the content is, if there is a no word drop. Okay, if there is no, for example, the this program, the second line is actually still there in the right side. Okay, so this horizontal scroll bar will be coming. Okay, so this is actually one value. So what are the values? Visible, hidden, and scroll. Okay, and one more thing, this scroll bar will be added. Okay, the scroll bar will be added automatically even though there is it is not needed. When you set scroll, even though it is not needed, the scroll bar will be added automatically, it will be added, right? So if you want to restrict that, okay, if you want to restrict that, for example, assume that in this paragraph I will remove some content. Okay, in this paragraph I will remove the content from here. See, I am going to keep only this much. Okay, now see that what will happen. Okay, see, now you can clearly understand. Here you can, here I have only one line of text. Even though I am having one line of text, the scroll bar is added. See, look at that. Here I have a scroll bar, here I have a scroll bar, but of course it is not visible. But even though there is a no much content, okay, here the scroll bar is available, right? So this is the default behavior of this particular scroll thing. So if you want to stop this, if you want add scroll bar, listen carefully, if you want to add scroll bar only when it is required, you have to use, instead of this scroll bar scroll, you have to use auto. When you use auto, what will happen is the scroll bar will be added only when it is required. Scroll bar will be added only when it is required. See, now the scroll bar is not at all required, so scroll bar is removed. But if I put that content again, so now see that I am putting the content, I am putting the paragraph again. Okay, now scroll bar is needed, right? So now we need a scroll bar. So what I have to what will happen? This overflow auto will bring the scroll bar automatically. So look at that, the scroll bar will automatically comes. Okay, so the best thing is, instead of scroll bar scroll, you have to use auto. So auto is the best way to handle the overflow of a content. Okay, so when it requires scroll bar, it will include the scroll bar. When the scroll bar is not needed, it won't include the scroll bar. For example, see, only vertical scroll bar is there, horizontal scroll bar is not at all there. Okay, so this is actually the it's auto means what? Automatically it will identify whether scroll bar is needed or not. So that's all about overflow property. CSS layout. Okay, you will get this position property link. So here you can study about position property, static, relative, fixed, absolute, sticky. An example is given. You have to practice this. Click, try it yourself, and you can see the programs and the corresponding output, and you can understand about what is fixed positioning. The same thing for relative and absolute, you can learn about this. And if you see the left side, you can see this is a position property. Similarly, we have a index, set index is there. So set index you can learn about here, from here, CSS layout set index. It's all about overlapping, controlling overlapping, and which one you want to show in the front side, that you can decide using set index. And followed by we have overflow property. Right click this overflow and you can see the tutorial CSS overflow property. So just now I discussed about this, right? Scroll bar thing. So look at that scroll bar. This is called overflow scroll. And what are the values? Visible, hidden, scroll, auto. So these are the possible values of overflow property. You can learn about this. as well as you can learn about CSS Float, CSS Float and Clear. So which is discussed in this session, right? Float property specifies how elements should float to right side. This is float left and float right. Float left, right, none is there. And one more thing, when you use float right, the advantage is if you have a paragraph and after paragraph if you want to keep some image, you can do that using float property. So what you have to do is just keep the image float right. Keep the float right to the image. So image will come to the automatically to the right side of the paragraph. So this is a wonderful idea, technique of a float. This is a specific behavior of a float property. Okay.